Poker is not only fun to play, but once in a while it provides us with a magical story that reminds us why we started playing poker. When we hear of Cinderella stories in poker, Chris Moneymaker is probably what comes to mind that changed the game and the industry forever. But when it comes to online felt, the miracle story of Marat Sharafutdinov, aka Maratik, takes the cake, who went from amateur status to poker elite in the space of a single tournament. Before that, he had just won $50 in his PokerStars account. His journey started at a 40 frequent player points satellite on PokerStars and ended with him winning the 2012 WCOOP main event for $1 million after beating a massive field of 1,825 players, many of whom can count themselves as part of the top 1% in the world and probably creating the greatest online poker success story of all time. Marat was a Russian low-stakes player and a taxi driver by day. Till then, Maratik only played $2 to $4 tournaments, but they were extremely regular. Over more than 25,000 tournaments later, he came to a positive ROI. However, he had such a shaky internet connection for a long time that he thought he had to give up online poker as he was kicked out several times during tournaments. He qualified for the main event of the WCOOP via FPP satellites. Expressing his view of FPP play, Maratik said, "I noticed that with enough luck you can qualify for just a small amount of FPPs, so I began to play them often." He had previously qualified for Sunday Million several times but never cashed. It was only when he was playing the tournament that he had the idea of selling shares because he did not want to be eliminated from the tournament without a profit. In the 10th level of the tournament, he advertised in several Russian forums and sold 1% each for $52 at buy-in value and with an enormous advantage for buyers. In total, he got rid of 35% and would have $1,800 safe even if he was eliminated. Since Maratik usually stuck to micro-stakes poker, many poker fans felt that he would be overwhelmed while playing against formidable poker players. But Maratik proved them all wrong by outlasting several players and winning large jackpots. He was quite confident about his gaming style by now and decided to use his table image to bluff his opponents. Through his experience in the countless small tournaments that he had played, he was able to adjust to the game in the late stages of the tournament. He says that he benefited a lot from the fact that other players rated him as a nit and that he was often able to successfully steal large pots by bluffing. It worked, and he made his way through to the 9-handed final table where Marat rated Mike Telker and Sly Caveat as the most dangerous players. All three made it to the deal stage, which saw the 6 remaining players guarantee themselves a minimum of $502,000 payout. Telker held the chip lead and a strong position, being just 2 Cs to the left of fellow big stack Marat, which allowed Telker to cut himself the largest slice of the pie. I WONT MILLION type Maratik when showed his suggested $923,000 payout, making an English isn't his first language typo that was quickly being adopted as a rallying cry for grinders all over the world. The other players wouldn't budge, neither would Telker, who threatened to end the deal process. It was pointed out that should Sharafutdinov win the title and the $100,000 which was set aside for the champ, that he would have his million. And win he did. After the win, he didn't get quite the $1 million he had won, but only something over $650,000 because of the 35% action he sold during the tournament. That's still over 20 million Russian rubles. Regarding the deal, Maratik said that he could basically have continued playing without getting involved. He was quite overwhelmed by the whole situation, also because of the language barrier. His almost legendary announcement, "I WONT MILLION," was by no means an absolute statement, but was only to be understood as a corrective to Mike Telker's demand, which originally demanded $1.2 million. After Maratik won the tournament, he did not feel anything at first. The whole situation was far too unrealistic for him, and he was also far too exhausted. First of all, he locked himself out of all higher limits on PokerStars so as not to be tempted to blow away his money. He says he understands that he was very lucky and that his abilities are very limited compared to regs at higher limits. An example of how not to do it was shown by the Sunday Millionaire runner-up 17 a.ka in 2011, who after his $150,000 cash in 300 tournaments put away all his winnings back into the sand. Maratik admitted without hesitation that he had support from friends via Skype during the tournament, but denied that he received direct match instructions. This is not uncommon in large online tournaments. In fact, one can assume that everyone at the final table of the WCOOP main event had support from other players. This practice is called ghosting and is not welcomed. However, since the principle of one player per hand actually applicable in poker cannot be strictly checked online anyway, this procedure is generally tolerated. With some players, it is very noticeable when they suddenly no longer make their own decisions. It happens more often that an apparently very loose and passive player gets to the final table of a big tournament through a lot of luck and then suddenly plays correct tournament poker from there. This was not the case with Maratik. His style of play was consistent throughout the tournament, only in heads-up play he suddenly became noticeably more aggressive. On the grounds that he did not want to destroy the chance of his life through strange and possibly wrong decisions, he explained that he was not hosted. In terms of ROI, this has to be the most profitable tournament win in history. It was an incredible story, one which gave birth to the great poker catchphrase, "I won't million," and there's nothing to say that it can't happen again. Amazingly, 7 years later, it did happen. This time, it was a player named Ramón Colillas who won the PokerStars Platinum Pass by topping the leaderboard for the Campeonato España de Poker, a PokerStars-sponsored Spanish tour. He then went on to beat the massive 1,038-player field comprising of Poker's Best to win the event for a cool $5.1 million. The story of the Russian taxi driver who plays poker on the side, qualifies for the equivalent of $1.5 for an expensive tournament and then wins $1 million in it was a perfect success story. But this story soon faded away. For one, he was not American, where such stories are relentlessly pushed. Most likely, that player was never remembered again, but his phrase, "I won't million," will certainly stay alive for a long time.